Do you remember the Barry Bonds case, the Barry Bonds hearings or whatever? Like, we're talking about the Doug Gottlieb case and Doug Gottlieb being held for or being sued for libel and like some of the different twists and turns that could take. But Kenny brought up something about Barry, and I remember someone going to jail. I remember his trainer, but I'm trying to remember if we're trying to figure out if anyone else went to jail in that process for not giving up their sources.
No, I don't think anyone. I don't remember anyone going to jail. I remember, is it Victor Conti? Is that his?
Mm-hmm.
That was his trainer. I think he was held in contempt because he wouldn't.
Victor Conti's the chemist.
Yeah, he's the brains of the whole operation.
Yeah, you're right. Somebody got in some trouble there, but to be honest with you, I'm not sure as far as like who was the writers on that?
Furuwawa or something like that. I know I'm butchering.
Furuwata, I think. Yeah.
And I felt like I said, I don't know if he went to jail. I don't want to say that, but I remember there was something about maybe it was a libel situation where they were like, "Hey, you got to tell us who told you all this stuff." And that was the journal. That's when I kind of got introduced to the whole journalistic, you never give up your sources type deal. Yeah. And like I said, I don't know if he went to jail, but I remember that being an issue.
Yeah, it's weird. It's always touchy. You never want to give up your sources. I mean, I had a story once, and I went to double check it, and I had someone within the walls like demand that I tell them who my source was, and I was pissed. I was not happy at all, and I told them that like that's so unprofessional. I can't believe you just asked me who my source is on this, and it was a Marvin Bagley injury issue. Oh my. and my source was good, and it was a situation where they said no, that your information is wrong, and then it proved out that it was not wrong. It was 100% correct. But in the middle of it, I actually had them say, who is your source? Who's telling you this? And I'm like, are you serious? Like, you're going to ask me that question? Like, I just don't know how to answer you at this point, because that's so incredibly unprofessional in that situation.
Couple of orders of business here. Number one, you are listening to KIFM West Sacramento, KRXQ HD2 Sacramento, ESPN 1320, driven by Lasher's Elk Grove Dodge, always free on the Odyssey app. Number two, we've got tickets to see Grammy Award-winning blues, rock, and soul fusion artist Gary Clark Jr. He's going to be at Hard Rock Live on October 9th, and we have got your tickets right now. Caller number 3, 916-349-1320, as we welcome in our 1320 Kings Insider and creator of the Kings Beat, James Ham Kenny.
Don't mind me. Forgive me here, Damian. There's two things I wanted to go over real quick. Number one, Doug Gottlieb. I think I know for a fact, I saw the game where he was at Notre Dame. He played Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson cooked the hell out of him. And I think that was the game where John Thompson threatened to take the team off the court because the crowd was saying, like, calling Allen Iverson a jailbird. Don't get me, don't quote me on that one, but I think that was that same game. Number two, is Kenny Chesney
strategy for a team that has Doug Gottlieb on it?
Yeah, you feel me?
I guess they're different.
Number two, just to put a book on this one, is Kenny Chesney the one that rescheduled his concert because he's a big North Carolina fan and it was the Final Four game?
No.
Who was that?
No, that's a different country artist. I don't know who it was, to be honest with you. Kenny's a Tennessee guy. That's the connection. He's a Tennessee guy.
And I wouldn't know. That's like talking country is like talking rap with me. Like, actually, I prefer rap over country.
So to James, Kenny Chesney and Kendrick Lamar, same person, same thing for all. I don't mind Kenny. Kenny Chesney is there's actually a couple country music artists that I don't mind at all. Kenny's not like Kenny's more of I think there's something called country rock or something like that. He's a little bit more along those lines where it's funky, like it's got I don't mind it.
I think he was friends with Nick Swisher when he was with the A's.
Oh, too. Wow, that's a throwback.
He's probably friends with every athlete you can think of. Like, he loves like sports. Like he's got a book where you just go through his tour photos, and he's with coaches, with players, just all over the country. Yeah, that's
Is he the Vivek Ranadive of country music?
with all due respect to Vivek Ranadive, I'm not going to do that to Kenny Chesney. I'm out here on a limb. Kenny Chesney is a massive country star.
Oh, for sure.
Like he's not like
I know who he is. So yeah, he's a massive country star.
His tours are stadiums. He's not doing the Golden One Center, like he's doing Levi Stadium and he's doing SoFi and Allegiant State. Like that's what he does.
No, I meant as far as his photo roll. That's all I meant.
Vivek got a long photo roll.
Yeah, Vivek, you know.
They go Kings.
You know, yeah, he takes pictures with a lot of famous people. So does my dude Sean Cunningham. Sean Cunningham, like he's got some stories. Like I mean, we on the Kings Beat virtual happy hour, he told the Paris Hilton story, which is one of the greatest stories ever, where Paris Hilton said he saved her life. And then introduced him to somebody. Who did she introduce him to?
Did he tell that story on the first episode of the King's Beat, or did you tease that story on the first episode?
We teased it, and then he told it on the happy hour. And
that's what happened.
Man, who was it? He was introduced to somebody backstage, and I can't remember who it was. Yeah.
We got to have Sean on the show next week because there's a Jay-Z plaque behind him that I always want to ask him what it's from. It looks like it says Madison Square Garden, and I need to know if Sean was at a Jay-Z show at Madison Square Garden. So we need to book Sean for next week. Just because I need to see the plaque behind him, and he needs to be at home.
Just to talk concerts.
That was a hell of an episode of the King's Beat that you guys did with Sean at the bar.
You know, you got to do what you got to do.
Sound.
Yeah, Sean was distracted multiple times. He was able to have a beer while he was on the pod. Yeah, I mean, when you're at Summer League and you got to break out of a stadium and search for a spot, there's nowhere that's quiet. I mean, it's Vegas. Everywhere you go, there's like the chime of casino, you know, of like slot machines and everything else. There's no quiet place in Vegas. And I'm certainly not going to ask Sean to go outside in the heat and like find a quiet spot outside. That just doesn't happen.
Like it's going to be quiet outside in Las Vegas.
It would be like the original Frosty the Snowman. You go out there and there's just a hat there where Sean was supposed to be sitting. You're like, what just happened? Yeah.
All you're going to hear on the pod is a bunch of,
hey, watch your mouth, woman.
Yeah. It was good. I mean, you know, in those situations when you do stuff on location, because we've done it multiple times where we've gone to, you know, restaurants and stuff, and like people complain about it. And I always like the ambiance of where somebody's at, you know, like I do. I like the ambiance of hearing when I'm listening to something with someone who's somewhere that, you know, you hear things going on in the background. You hear the faint sound of music and stuff like that. And so I don't get it. I mean, sure, is the audio perfect? No. But you got to do what you got to do in those situations.
Yeah, you get used to it. As a listener, you get used to it. Ain't no big deal.
Yeah.
There's a report out there that Keegan Murray is going to play tonight. Like, it's cool, but why? I feel like we're riding really high right now, and I don't feel like it can get any higher.
Well, that and he's leading Summer League in minutes played. Like, are they looking for an MVP? I mean, he's already going to be a first team all Summer League selection. Like that actually mattered. I don't know why that matters, but maybe there is a ring for MVP. It's possible he could win MVP because you got to go back to last year where the co-MVP was Davion Mitchell, but he shared it with was it Cam Thomas? It was someone else who had scored the most during the tournament, but he was the best player on the best team as far as Mitchell. So maybe that's what they're going for. I'm not sure. It's just
Thomas going for another one.
Yeah, back.
Yeah, it's crazy. I just don't. It's risky putting someone out there and hoping that everything goes well because I mean we got a couple of months here, but that time can be eaten up very quickly by an injury, and we've already seen so many of the big name guys go down in this in the tournament. You know, as far as like Shaden Sharp and Jaden Ivey and you know even
Tyson
EJ
Daniel.
Liddell. Yeah. There's been plenty of guys who have gone down, and so you always have to be a little leery on that.
The other thing that I don't like about it either is there's the level of desperation in these games from the guys that he's playing with. These guys are fighting for their basketball lives, and they'll do anything to catch the attention of some of the scouts that are there, or just get some stuff on tape. And I'm not saying it to say anybody's going to do something, nefarious or something dirty, but there's a loose ball, I'm going to show my hustle and just dive recklessly out there. I wouldn't want him around any of this for the next 2 days. So I don't really even see the benefit in him playing another 2 more games, to be honest with you.
No, I don't see it either. And the problem that you have is that a lot of teams shut down their better players. And so that leaves a bunch of tryhards. And that's where things get dangerous. You go up for a layup and some guy is out of control and takes you out on accident. Again, I don't think it's purposeful, but guys are trying to show that they belong, and they are doing try-hard things. They're on the floor. They're going up high when you're on a wide-open break and they could hurt you. So there's always that risk, and I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, he's shown everything that you wanted him to show. Like, everyone in the league is applauding the Kings at this point, including people like myself who were leery on taking him at number 4. He's been spectacular. He's been everything that they hoped he would be, and probably quite a bit more. And so it's good to see that, but at the same time, like, you're putting a guy out there. Even the Keita thing, Keita ends up with 1 point and 1 rebound in 24, 25 minutes after having a calf injury. That's so risky. Calf injuries can be a 10-week injury with no question, and lead you into training camp, and he could miss all that development time. So I was a little shocked at that one. And then again, if he does play, you never know. Maybe they pull off and say, nah, he's not going to play tonight. It's not like fans buy tickets to the second weekend of Summer League just so they can see Keegan Murray.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll get back to Keegan and Summer League and all of that stuff. KZ Okpala, any thoughts on that signing this morning?
Yeah,
more details on it. Do we know the number to that? I couldn't find a number for it.
No, I'm going to guarantee it's a league minimum deal, and it's probably not even fully guaranteed. They have a 2-year contract, but I'm almost positive it's not fully guaranteed. I couldn't get any sort of the numbers this morning. It probably will pop up at some point where we have the numbers, but I don't know. Why not? This is a kid who, number one, he went to Stanford, so he's a smart kid. You don't get into Stanford even as a basketball player unless you got a head on your shoulders.
Yeah.
He's basically it's like they cloned Mo Harkless as far as his body. He's I think 6'7" and a quarter without shoes on. He's one of those guys that decided to show up in platform shoes to the combine. So he measured in a full 2.5 inches taller with shoes on, which is why I always like to say with shoes, without shoes. But 6'9" and 3/4 with shoes on. And it's like, hey man, are you wearing some Tom Cruise lifts there? What's happening? So I'm not sure. But again, 7'2" wingspan. This is a kid that averaged 19 points a game in his sophomore year in college. And he's been in one of the best organizations in the NBA for the last 3 years. That doesn't always work out. A couple of years ago, we saw Chris Silva get traded from the Miami Heat to the Sacramento Kings, and very quickly you realize that guy had no business being on an NBA court. But this is the type of long, athletic defender. He's got a relationship already with the entire coaching staff because he was on the Nigerian national team. So again, he knows Jordy, he knows Mike Brown, he knows Luke Laux. He's tied in, and if you can get a guy who has some promise, who's still only 23 years old, who has all the measurables that you could dream of, and is a defensive lockdown guy, then I think it's worth the low risk, even if it did cost him one of their roster spots for this season.
Yeah, and we talk a lot of the times about kicking the tires on certain players, and a lot of times, I know me specifically, I'm talking about guys that are, offensively talented and seeing what they got, bringing them in, see if that turns into something. I feel like the Kings, and I like the move, and I'm all for it, kind of did that here with maybe a defensive guy where, he's young. He has some attributes that you would like. The coaching staff is familiar with him. Let's see if we can bring him into the organization, bring him into the program, and see if that can manifest itself into something maybe bigger. And when I say bigger, I'm not talking like an all-star guy, but maybe a rotation guy at some point. And you got him essentially, we don't know the numbers like we talked about, but you got him at a relatively cheap price, and you got him before anybody else could get a look at him. I'm thinking like a Bruce Brown type guy in Brooklyn. So I feel like this was a kick the tire situation, but this time on the defensive end, and I'm good with that.
Yeah, I mean, we keep looking at this roster and looking at the improvements. And, again, Keegan Murray is going to be a solid defender at the NBA level. Kevin Huerter is solid. Malik Monk he's got to get better. I mean, he told us even in his in his introductory press conference that was something that both the coach and the GM said, hey, like, look, you're going to have to play defense. You're going to have to get better on that end. We've been waiting for that moment where the Kings actually got somebody to play defense to improve like the 27th or 28th worst defense in the league. And the problem that I have is that if you add players that play defense, they have to actually be players that will actually see the court and play minutes, because just having a guy that plays defense sitting on the bench doesn't actually help your defense. So again, I really dig Keon Ellis. I think he plays defense at a high level, and I'm excited to see what he can do. This is another guy in KZ Okpala that I think has all kinds of potential on the defensive end, but you need somebody who's in your rotation that can play defense, and we still have not seen that piece. Again, Keegan Murray a little bit, I think he's going to be a solid defender. I don't think he'll be an out of this world defender, but I think solid team defender, solid man-on defender, decent shot blocker, stuff like that. We're still waiting for that moment where they get somebody who actually can change what's happening on the court.
James, it was a really uneventful couple of hours yesterday when the Indiana Pacers submitted an offer sheet for $133 million to DeAndre Ayton. And we had fun debating what would happen, what would they do, what would the Suns do, can they work out a sign and trade, how would this all transpire? When ultimately it was very uneventful, and the Suns were like, yeah, we told him all along we were going to match this deal. Like, he's going to be a member of this organization. Saw Bobby Marks mention this morning that the Suns are now $15 million in the tax, and they want to remain competitive, and they were a 60-plus win team, and they want to get back to the NBA Finals and ultimately win that NBA championship. But I also wonder how much is that ownership, how much is Robert Sarver willing to, and how long is Robert Sarver willing to pay that far into the luxury tax, knowing it's probably only going to get worse. And that just led me to Cam Johnson. That led me to a guy who, like, do you have the opportunity to realistically re-sign him next year? And Cam is one of those guys where we've talked about, what do you want in exchange for Harrison Barnes? Well, preferably a Harrison Barnes. But if you could get a younger Harrison Barnes, that would be great. I honestly think the closest in the league to that might really be Cam Johnson. I don't know how realistic it is, but it's not like Phoenix has been known to just throw money around. So if they can shed a couple of bucks, maybe send another salary back here with Sacramento, take that money back, they're going to be well over the cap this year. Have that money fall off next year. Don't have to worry about qualifying offers or anything pertaining to Cam Johnson. And again, they're probably going to want to get rid of one other contract. I'm talking myself into, from the Phoenix perspective, this works and this makes sense. But just this morning, it just happened this morning. I fall quick. I think I fell in love with Cam Johnson.
Yeah, you have a tendency to do that. You guys fall in love with people. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a possibility that a guy like Dario Saric could be thrown in to make sort of the numbers, but we're talking about a team who's already over the cap, and already in the luxury tax zone. So, I mean, you could save them a few bucks by doing something, that could reduce their salary bill. But the problem is Cam Johnson doesn't make that much money. And so this season alone, he doesn't make all that much. I mean, could you get a Landry Shamet out of it or something like that? Maybe. But there's a better chance that they just run the risk of losing him for nothing next offseason, or they do a qualifying offer and they see what happens, and then maybe they get rid of a couple other guys on their books to clear out some space. I think it's a good idea because he is a young player who's developing and a very talented player. But at the end of the day, they are going to still play for a championship. And at least that's their hope, that they're going to be a team that's competing. Mm-hmm. And you're going to want to keep your core together as much as possible. And maybe you do end up paying the tax bill. Phoenix has got away without paying the tax bill for a long time. Maybe it is time that, that they shell out some dough, or they rethink the fact that they signed Chris Paul to like the most ridiculous salary of all time, and it just keeps going up. And although I guess he did take less money this time around, so yeah, they're going to be in a tax problem for a while. Chris Paul's making 28.4 this year, 30.8 next year, and 30 million in 2024-25. And we're talking about like
how old is he? Gonna be like 39?
Yeah. He just turned 37, so he'll be 39 entering that final year.
CP40.
CP40. Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be and he's going to make a lot, $30 million at 40. He's done a really, really good job of making a lot of money over his career. He's made over $300 million already, and by the time he's done, it'll be closer to $400 million.
Wow! Congratulations.
He's that caliber of player, though.
We talk about all the time. He's one of the greatest point guards we've ever seen.
He's that guy.
Yeah.
Still led the league in assists last year.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I think, to be honest with you, not to go on this isn't the Suns Beat podcast, but I think moving forward, I don't know if he'd want to do it. It's not whether or not he can play or do some things. I think he gets worn down even more with his older age. I feel like, I don't know how you would do it, but like playing half the season would be more beneficial for somebody like Chris Paul. So by the end of the playoffs, he's not worn down. He's a little fresher. You could work with his minutes or something like that. I don't know, but like that's how you get him all the way through that contract, if you ask me.
Yeah, you know how you could have done that is if you would have drafted Tyrese Halliburton with the 10th pick in the 2020 NBA draft instead of Smith. Why am I drawing a blank? That they waived. Jalen Smith before his second year was up. Yeah, I mean, that's a problem, right?
So you mean a better version of prime Chris Paul is what you could have drafted there. But matter of fact, better version of Tyrese is way better than Chris Paul ever was.
Well, they certainly could have had a 3-guard set with Tyrese Halliburton playing 30-something minutes a night and allowing Chris Paul to take it easy during the regular season. And to not do that, I mean, that's going to be one that sticks out as one of the blunders. People they always blame the Kings for not drafting Luka. They forget that the Suns drafted DeAndre Ayton instead of Luka as well, and they've made plenty of other mistakes in the top 5 of the draft. Dragan Bender, Alex Len, lots.
I think Jalen and Jacoby were going to do a segment about how much Chris Paul could have learned from Tyrese Halliburton. Imagine Tyrese taking Chris Paul under his wing. We know how great Tyrese Halliburton is. Imagine him taking Chris Paul under his wing.
He could have said, hey, bring your brother along, and I'll teach both of you how to be more likable, because Tyrese is one of the more liked guys in the league, where Chris Paul is not. He never has been.
I disagree.
If he's on your team, you love him. If he's not on your team,
I think fans have their feelings about Chris Paul. I don't think players have those feelings about Chris Paul.
Oh no,
DeMarcus
DeMarcus the only one.
DeMarcus is the exception.
Yeah, I mean DeMarcus but there are other players there are a lot of players that don't like playing against Chris Paul. It's the little things that he does. I mean, he's he's incredibly talented, and he hasn't won the big ring, but he definitely is a guy. I mean, he's first ballot Hall of Famer. He's just not like the guys that I've talked to. He's not loved around the league. But, coaches like Michael Malone told me he's the best leader he'd ever been around, bar none. Like, it wasn't even close.
I forgot. Nectar's right. Pat Bev doesn't seem to like him.
True. That's true. Pat Bev, I don't think likes anybody.
I don't think he likes himself most of the time.
What an embarrassing week that was for ESPN. I'm on there all week.
Like, so bad. It's off the top of my head. I mean, Chris, Chuck, Patrick Ewing, Malone, and Stockton.
Mm-hmm.
The best player to never win a ring. Like, because part of me wants to say it's Chris Paul, but
yeah,
I don't.
No, it's got to be Karl Malone.
And that's the I don't like Karl Malone is such a, you talk about a terrible human being, but yeah, that dude was a ball player.
Karl Malone above Charles Barkley. Karl Malone was never. He won an MVP. He won one MVP, right?
Karl Malone better longer than Chuck.
He was definitely better longer. He was a better player longer than Charles Barkley.
Well, that he also finished with more points, with more rebounds, everything than Chuck. I mean, Karl Malone was such a force. He isn't, like, you're right as far as the human being part, but yeah, I don't know. And I mean, Charles Barkley is beloved now. I mean, this is his final year, right? This coming year.
Yeah, apparently he's talking to what's it called Liv. He's looking for a commentating job in Saudi Arabia.
Oh my god!
Hey, get the bag, Chuck.
I think it's warm there. Does he know that it's warm there? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I don't know what Chuck knows. But I actually just saw that. I saw that note earlier.
His Subway commercial was pretty funny. The one with Romo.
Those are. I kind of feel like it's Barkley. I don't know. I don't feel like Barkley gets credited for how great he really, like, Charles Barkley is a great basketball player.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, so is Malone. And Malone,
for sure.
I mean, Malone would have had 3 titles if he didn't play in the Jordan era. So, you can probably say that about Pat too.
Charles Barkley, I know Malone won an MVP, but I don't think he was looked at as the best player in the game, or the second best player in the game at that time. Charles Barkley had at least 2 seasons when he was the second best player in the game, best player in the world.
I don't know, man. Better than Olajuwon? I mean, he played in an era with some of the greatest centers in
93
ever.
93, Chuck was the second best player in the world.
That was slim, shredded Chuck.
In
Phoenix.
He was crazy.
Playing for Phoenix.
What he
that was a great team too.
Seattle? Then he go like 40-20
in
that Western Conference Finals Game 7.
Yeah,
something crazy, like 36-20 or something like that.
We'll come back. James Ham is going nowhere. We'll talk more about Keegan Murray and James. There's a lot of talk about ceilings. I'm curious about if you feel like Keegan Murray's ceiling, which is completely perceived, has changed at all. We'll dive into that when D'Lo and Casey return with James Ham here on ESPN 1320. Oh, right on, man. Mitch is a grandpa.
Hey, shout out to Mitch, man.
We'll make sure we hit that on the air.
Yeah, Soren. See, I gotta watch myself with you guys, man.
Yeah. James normally catches those pretty quick too. Thankfully, we both kind of just rolled past that one.
I missed it.
Yeah, it's something about being bigger and longer, and it was going to end badly if you kept looking at the chat. So,
yeah,
no good. No good.
Oh
man, you got plans this weekend, Hammer?
It's our anniversary.
Oh, very nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, 23.
Nice.
That's awesome. Where did you guys meet?
Albertsons. We both worked at Albertsons when we were super young.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
Yes, Roddy. On a boat.
You guys lasted Albertsons.
Yeah. I think they still have them in.
Oh, do they? Oh,
they're in Southern,
in like Utah.
Oh, yeah. Southern California? Maybe not.
Yeah, they. They pulled out of California mostly, I believe. I'm not sure.
Johnny Juzang. Poor guy should have left after the Final Four.
Are there games on now?
Yeah. Clippers and Jazz.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, see, Keldon Johnson's another one too. I don't know if the Spurs are buyers or sellers at this point. I'm gonna guess that they're still sellers, but they haven't traded away Portal. You know, I don't know. You got to leave at least a couple of people there. What?
Yeah, I mean, you got to fill the team.
Yeah, yeah, and they're so far below the cap right now. They're gonna have to sign somebody. I could see them doing something like you were talking about Keldon Johnson. I don't know, like, can Keldon play the 3? I don't think he can. He's more of a 4. And they have so much invested in him, even like, you know, with Pop taking him to, oh no, he's a small forward, taking him to the Olympic stuff. I could see them listening to a Harrison Barnes and draft capital for Keldon Johnson because they need to spend their cap space, and Keldon like probably doesn't fit their window. He's 22. That's an interesting question. And the value with Harrison Barnes is you get to the midway point in the season and you trade Harrison Barnes for a first-round pick. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so get something from the Kings. You know, maybe a couple of second-round picks. And then, and then let them go trade Harrison for a first-round pick down the road. That just makes you way younger. I mean, that's why I would look at a deal like that. I still think that Harrison's probably a better overall player. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he averaged 17 and 6 last year, shot 39.8% from the field. From 3.
How many years did you say for him?
He's entering his 4th year, so they're gonna have to pay him.
So it's the same as
Cam.
All right, we're coming back, guys. Hang on. Live on the Odyssey app, live on Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter, wherever you are. We appreciate you so much for being with us. James Ham, 1320 Kings Insider and creator of the Kings Beat with us. Before we dive back into the Sacramento Kings, KC, can we let them air horns fly for our man Mitch? Mitch from New Jersey has been talking about being a grandpa the last few months, and we didn't get a chance to talk to him today, but he did call Jesse and let him know the baby was born. Everybody is healthy, and our man Mitch is a grandpa.
Big ups to Grandpa Mitch, my man. Congratulations. Oh, why do I have to say it? I can play it.
Congratulations. Oh my God.
If I remember correctly, he was having a granddaughter. I believe that. I can't remember if that was definitively stated because I feel like if he was having a grandson, probably named him Keegan. Don't know that for sure. We'll check in with Mitch on Monday. Has Keegan Murray's ceiling now evolved to naming babies after him? Are we high enough on Keegan Murray now to just start naming kids over the course of the next 6-7 months after him?
Yeah, he's somewhere between naming kids and getting his face tattooed on your calf.
There you go.
Like he is. I think he's right there. At this point, it's early. Like we should always keep saying that it's summer league and it's early, but he's looked really good, and I think everyone should be super super excited about him. And you know, has he changed what I think his ceiling is? Probably a little bit. Like he hasn't blown the top off the ceiling, But he definitely has shown some things that make him even more intriguing than I think he was coming out of college. So, yeah, he's done a great job. And Kings fans should be totally excited about the pick and about his potential. You should be, you can't just start penciling in like 41 wins as opposed to the 40 that these guys want. But you should probably you should know that he's going to be a big part of what's going on this season, and he's got a chance to be a very successful NBA player.
What are some of the things that you've seen from him to make you change that? Is it just the consistency of the scoring, or there's some intricate things?
I got you, baby.
I wasn't going to say intricacies. I was meant to say intricate things in his game that you've seen that have kind of been like, oh, okay, I didn't think he had that. I could see him having that at the NBA level.
Yeah, I think like I'll keep like comparing him. Like if you look at guys like Harrison Barnes and Tobias Harris and Marvin Williams and say Rudy Gay, even though Rudy Gay's, like was more of a 3 for most of his career, still almost the same size as Keegan Murray. Like if you look at those guys, like what separates them from being like, they're all really, really good players, but what separates them from being like superstars or all-stars is just that little switch inside that says, okay, I'm going to take over. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. That killer instinct. They're all great players. They all do really good things on the court, but they're always going to be more like third best player on a good team or on a good playoff team. And to me, most of what separates those guys from that and like multi-time All-Star and future Hall of Famer, it's more mentality than it's anything else. Because when I watch Rudy Gay play here in Sacramento for a long time, like everything he does on a basketball court is beautiful. Like his finger roll was like George Gervin-esque. I mean, the whole time you're just like, holy cow, he is so incredibly talented. But he just never put his foot down and like demanded that he was great and his team was great and they were going to go win a bunch of games and a bunch of championships and all that stuff. So I think there is a mental component to Keegan Murray that we're already seeing that I didn't think that he had. And it's that he calls for the ball. He wants the big shot. He takes a big shot, but even in a normal setting, he's calling for a ball in the corner. As soon as he catches it, it leaves his hand. There's no hesitation. There is no, like nervousness to him. He's just ready to ball. And, I think that that's something that you just can't measure in a player until they get to the league and you see them in functional situations and see if they're a guy who can separate themselves from the pack. And so far, that's where I would say, hey, look, he has got something about him that changes my mind about him, that makes me think he can be better than what I thought he could be watching him in college. And that's because he's doing this at a different level, at a different stage, with players around him that aren't nearly as good, that he hasn't practiced with hardly at all. And he's demanding that they're good and they're great and that he's going to carry them. And I think that is the one thing that I'm watching and I'm super impressed with, and it changes what I think his ceiling can be.
Did that surprise you?
Yeah, it did, because I watched a lot of him. I came to you guys like early on and said, hey, Keegan Murray, because I thought the Kings were going to be around the 7th, 8th, 9th pick. And, that he was a guy that I totally liked. And then I watched him playing in his conference tournament and leading into the tournament. And it was like, okay, I like him, but do I love him? Do I think he's as impactful? Then you watch him at the next level with his spacing is better and everything else. And man, as a third option as a rookie, I think he can be a third option as a rookie. Mm-hmm. And that tells me that there's a possibility he could be a second option down the road. I don't know that he's a pure number one and that he can be that guy, but I do think he can be a really, really good player on a very, very good team. And I wasn't sure of that before. Now that's where I'm changing. Like his mentality has changed me, if anything.
Yeah. And we go through this whole draft process and everything. And we see things, but I think all three of us are really consistent in saying like we don't know because the college game is a different type of game than the NBA game. Guys like Keegan Murray, Jaden Ivey, Paolo Banchero, even you see it with Chet. The NBA game is so much more wide open. There are certain things that in college they kind of feel like they have the handcuffs on them because of the spacing or lack thereof, or the coaches have so much control over every single possession coming down the court that it's so much more wide open in the NBA. They may be able to reach parts of their games that we didn't even see in anything they can do in college. And I feel like Keegan, that may not be exactly what's going on with him because he's about who he was in college to me, but it's just been blown up to a whole nother level. It's like the things that he was able to do in college, he can do them on a higher level now with all the spacing and different things going on the NBA game.
Yeah, I mean, like I've compared him to Marvin Williams, and someone made a comment about that's not going to age well. And like Marvin Williams was the second pick in the draft. He was a guy who lasted in the league for 14 years. I mean, he averaged 14 points a game. It's not like that's a derogatory thing to compare him to Marvin Williams. He moves like Marvin Williams. He does. Like I still see that as a player comp. The difference is like if he has this other thing that separates him, because we can all look. You can go back and watch film all you want of Marvin Williams. There are moments where you're like, how in the world did you just do that? That was incredible. Why don't you do that more often? There are plays when Harrison Barnes cuts through the lane and he decides not to do the Euro step. He decides to go up and over the top of everyone and hammer a ball down. And you're just left with this like, okay, that was amazing. Where is that like the other 75 games of the year? Like there are things that guys that do where they almost, I feel like they cap themselves. They get comfortable in who and what they think they are in the league. And they're like, okay, this is who I'm going to be. And that's okay. And that's a good thing in some instances. But then in other instances where, we're talking about a bunch of guys who were all taken in the top 10 outside of Tobias Harris, which I think was 19. Like you should be a really, really good player. And what separates a really good player from a great player and a great player from a, multi-time All-Star and a multi-time All-Star from a superstar and a like Hall of Fame player, it's like this little tiny bit. It's not some astronomical thing. There's only one LeBron. There's only, one, I don't know, like you can go around like Giannis. But like what separates the Steph Currys and the Damian Lillards of the league? And then what's the next step down? What separates those guys from CJ McCollum? It's just that little tiny bit where they just figure it out and they demand something more and they're just better. And that's something that I think where you can see that Keegan has this other thing that could separate him, that could pull him ahead of some of the other players that we comp him against, just because there's something internally inside him that pushes him to be better and to want more.
And then one of the best thing is we talk, it almost feels like, because we're excited and it's nothing at all wrong with that, we're talking almost definitively. Like, no, we were all wrong about Keegan Murray. He is going to be Jaden Ivey. What a ridiculous take. Marvin Williams, come on, James Ham. All based off of 6 games in the summer. Like everything we had evaluated just definitively wrong. And Keegan is the next big thing here in the city of Sacramento. And again, absolutely nothing wrong with feeling that way. But I am really anxious to see him on the floor in a meaningful basketball game with De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis out there with him. I'm anxious to see, and again, nothing has happened at all that's even remotely negative. I'm anxious to see how all of this translates, because what we saw in Summer League looks exactly what we saw in Iowa. This is the first time where we expect it's going to look different. It's going to look different because the level of competition is different. And for Keegan, and I think this is a positive thing, the level of basketball players around him is different. It's better. It's much better. And that's when we can make a judgment on Keegan Murray.
Yeah, I mean, if he walks in with this same personality that he has and this same skill set, And then it's De'Aaron Fox instead of Frankie Ferrari, and it's Domantas Sabonis instead of Neemias Queta, and like name that small forward versus Harrison Barnes, and then shooters that are just incredible, like Kevin Herter and why am I drawing a blank? Malik Monk. Yeah, like he still has the ability to do what he's doing right now, because the pressure will be on those guys to do what they're doing, and he'll be able to have even more freedom. Like, I think he's going to have a wide open door to make a run at the Rookie of the Year, to play 28 to 30 minutes a game. I think the Kings are going to promote that. They're going to want him on the court. And at the end of the day, I think he's their best option at the power forward spot to be good. If you want to be a better team, he certainly, to me, is a major step above. In his rookie season, he'll be a major step above guys like Chimezie Metu and Trey Lyles and anyone else that you can put at that position. So I want to see what he looks like with the spacing and the everything looking different. Is he going to have some nights where he doesn't look good? Of course.
Nah.
But that happens to every player. Every player has that. So, yeah, I like what we're seeing so far. I really do.
And obviously, you're going to always be looking to, if you're Monty McNair and the Sacramento Kings, you're going to always be looking to try to improve. But for the most part, do you think they're done now, or is it really, no, we're not done. We're still active trying to get things taken care of before the season starts?
No, I think they're still super active. And there's still 2 or 3 major deals that are going to happen.
How so? Like, in what ways? I know we talk about Harrison Barnes. Is it just that, or are there other ways, via trade or free agent that we're not seeing? They can add some major pieces.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing left in free agency, really. You're just picking on bones at this point. There's very, very little left. So what I'm talking about is swinging for the fence, using draft capital, using veterans, using expiring contracts. You still have that in your arsenal to go out and do something. And that's where I think that they're going to continue to try to improve the team. Again, we've talked about it a bunch. It is Harrison Barnes as much as it's, anything else, but that's because Harrison Barnes is entering the final year of his deal, and you need to take advantage of the fact that he both has value as a veteran and value as an expiring contract and a trade chip. I think he really does have all kinds of value in so many different situations that, why not? Like, you can save him until you get to the trade deadline, but the problem is if you save him until then and you're competing, and say you're the 6th seed in the playoff hunt, you can't just trade him away for nothing at the trade deadline. And you also don't want to take a major step backwards, but you also don't want to lose him for nothing. Like, it becomes way more complex. It's better to take care of that now and to lock something in with someone who is guaranteed to be in Sacramento longer than just this season. And even if you're taking a step back a little bit in talent, but maybe you're getting a better fit, then, you got to consider a lot of different things. And we still haven't seen Kyrie get traded. We still haven't seen Kevin Durant get traded. I think that there's still going to be some
I don't
major.
think they're going to either.
Well,
I think
maybe not.
In Brooklyn.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we don't see them get traded, but, Donovan Mitchell likely is going to get traded. Can the Kings be a player in a 3-team deal that gives up a future first-round pick and gets something else in that deal? Is there some other player out there that makes sense? Again, if you're Brooklyn and you are going to keep Kyrie and you are going to keep Kevin Durant, but you're just not sold that Ben Simmons is part of that future, and you can't risk wasting a year of Durant and Irvin, maybe there is a deal there that can be worked out where you give them a very good veteran in Harrison Barnes and you take on a Ben Simmons that fits the player arc of your team and fills a role and all that stuff. So, I think that there are going to be all kinds of doors that open up between now and, the start of the regular season, and the Kings are, they're ready to make a move if one comes up.
Do you think Phoenix did what they wanted to do, or did what they really had no choice to do?
think it's a little bit of both. I don't think that they wanted to pay him 133 million bucks, but I also know that, you know, they did save quite a bit of money. I think the max deal that they could have given him was way more. They could have given him a 5th year, but on top of that, the max deal that they could have given him had 8% raises and not 5% raises, like the deal that he got in free agency. So it went from like 139 million for a 4-year deal to 133 million, and that's only $6 million over 4 years, but that's still $6 million over 4 years when you're a luxury tax team and you're going to have repeater taxes and all that stuff. You know, those things compound pretty quickly. You know, if you're paying 4 times, that's $6 million extra a year that you just saved by having someone else sign him to a contract that you didn't. But at the same time, I've never thought he's a perfect fit there at all. And I think he's a good player. I don't think he's a great player. I don't think he's remotely close to worth 133 million over 4 years. If I look at what the Kings have in Fox and what they paid for Fox, I would prefer Fox over him like any day of the week. I just don't think that he's that functional. Like, where is he rank in the best centers in the league? I mean, it's not in the top 10, and you're paying him a lot of money. So, yeah, I'm a little leery on the deal itself. But again, if you're going to try to ride out the last 3 years of Chris Paul's career, you got to have players. And if they weren't going to be able to trade him and go get one of these pieces that they were hoping to get, then this was the best option just to match the deal.
Yeah. One of those things where, you know, he's more valuable to the Suns and what they have going on to maybe other people in the league. And I thought that was the right move to.
It's the nature of the league.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just went from having Bismack Biyombo as their starting center to DeAndre Ayton. So, I mean, they got better. It's just you paid a lot for 16 points and 10 rebounds a game.
But I mean, part of the reason I posed that question is because as good as like Domantas Sabonis, I don't think in 2 years, even in an ideal scenario for all of us, in 2 years, isn't going to be a top 10 player in the league. Probably won't be a top 20 player in the league.
Mm-hmm.
But every Kings fan, I think, if this year goes well, if next year goes, they're all prepared to make sure he is paid very, very handsomely. And that's just the nature of the league where, guys get killed, organizations get murdered for paying people certain contracts, but it's advantageous to pay your guys that money because that is, in a sense, the easiest way to build a contender. If you're wrong, that's an entirely different story. But if you believe like he is an important piece of what you're doing, you almost have to do it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I'll even say this, like, I don't put Ayton in the same like realm as Sabonis. I mean, that's like, you're going to have to pay Sabonis.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Sabonis is a much better player than Ayton. And even though the age, he's
Sure.
younger than Sabonis by a couple of years, still, I mean, this is a player that, is pretty one-dimensional. He's not a great defender. He's a solid defender. Everything he does, he's good at. He's not great at. And there are things that Sabonis does that he's great at. And so, yeah, I don't know. Like at the end of the day, I think that they had to do it. But they're going to be a strong team. I think the West is going to be strong, and we're seeing a couple of teams who are falling apart as far as like San Antonio just giving up the ghost and Utah taking a step back and possibly a huge step back. Those are ways that the door's open, but you got to worry about teams like the Lakers, teams like the Blazers, finding a way to be better this year as well. And the Kings are going to have a lot of competition to get better this year.
Let's all knock on some wood, light some sage, all around Sacramento. So just make sure Keegan is fine.
Yeah, someone saged all of Las Vegas at this point, just to ensure nothing happens to the star rookie. James Ham, Kings Beat podcast, available on the Odyssey app, on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you get podcasts from. Head over to thekingsbeat.com, become a subscriber to the newsletter, become a premium subscriber to the newsletter. I promise you, it is absolutely